One decision could change football forever. FIFA calls it progress. Critics call it a mistake. And depending on who you ask, it could either be the greatest innovation in football history, or the beginning of a problem that may never be fixed. For nearly a century, the FIFA World Cup followed a relatively simple formula. The best teams in the world would qualify. They would compete over a few intense weeks. And one nation would lift football's most prestigious trophy. It wasn't perfect. But it worked. The World Cup became the biggest sporting event on Earth. Billions watched. Legends were born. History was written. And every 4 years, football united the world. Then FIFA made a decision that would change everything. The World Cup would expand from 32 teams to 48. At first, the announcement sounded exciting. More countries. More players. More fans. More football. Who wouldn't want that? For decades, many nations had narrowly missed out on football's biggest stage. Entire regions felt underrepresented. Smaller footballing nations dreamed of participating but rarely had the opportunity. FIFA argued that expansion would finally make the World Cup more inclusive. More nations would experience the tournament. More fans would have a reason to care. More countries would be able to dream. And on the surface, it was hard to disagree. Football is the world's game. So why shouldn't more of the world be allowed to participate? But beneath the optimism, critics were already sounding the alarm. Because bigger doesn't always mean better. And history has shown that when something becomes too large, unexpected problems often follow. The concern started with a simple question. Why was FIFA really expanding the World Cup? Was it truly about helping smaller nations? Or was it about something else? Money. The modern World Cup is one of the most valuable sporting properties on Earth. Broadcasters pay billions for television rights. Sponsors spend enormous amounts to place their brands alongside football's biggest event. Host cities invest heavily in infrastructure. And FIFA generates extraordinary revenues. More teams means more matches. More matches means more broadcast hours. More broadcast hours means more advertising opportunities. And more advertising opportunities mean more money. A lot more money. Critics argued that the expansion was less about football development and more about maximizing commercial potential. FIFA strongly rejected those claims. Officials insisted that the goal was global growth. And to be fair, there was evidence supporting their argument. Countries that rarely qualified for previous World Cups suddenly had realistic opportunities. Nations that had spent decades watching from home could now dream of participating. Supporters in emerging football markets became more engaged. From FIFA's perspective, expansion was working exactly as intended. But then another issue emerged. Quality. The traditional World Cup brought together the very best teams in the world. Qualification was brutal. Even strong nations sometimes failed to qualify. The tournament felt elite. Every match mattered. Every point was precious. Every game felt significant. With 48 teams, critics feared that standard could decline. Would there be more one-sided matches? Would weaker teams reduce the overall quality of competition? Would the group stage become less exciting? Nobody knew for certain. But the debate quickly intensified. Supporters of expansion argued that every football nation deserves an opportunity. Critics argued that the World Cup should remain the highest standard of international football. And suddenly, the argument became much bigger than football itself. What matters more? Inclusion? Or excellence? Growth? Or quality? The answers were not simple. And they still aren't. Then came another problem. Player workload. Modern footballers already play an enormous number of matches every season. Domestic leagues. Cup competitions. Continental tournaments. International fixtures. Friendly matches. Travel. Recovery. Media obligations. For elite players, the calendar is relentless. Many footballers now play more than 50 matches every year. Some play even more. Managers have repeatedly warned that players are reaching dangerous limits. Injuries are increasing. Recovery time is shrinking. Physical demands continue growing. Yet the expanded World Cup adds even more matches to an already crowded schedule. For some players, that means additional travel, additional pressure, additional fatigue, and additional risk. Football may be growing, but human bodies have limits. And those limits don't disappear simply because television audiences are increasing. Then there is the challenge of logistics. The larger tournament requires more stadiums, more transportation, more accommodation, more security, more planning. Everything becomes more complicated. The 2026 World Cup is already the largest tournament FIFA has ever organized. 3 host countries, 48 teams, 104 matches. The scale is unprecedented. Never before has football attempted something this ambitious. Supporters see that as exciting. Critics see it as risky. Because when an event becomes too large, maintaining the experience becomes increasingly difficult. Fans have already raised concerns about travel distances between venues. Others worry about ticket availability. Some fear rising costs. And many wonder whether the atmosphere that made previous World Cup special can survive such massive expansion. Football's greatest moments have always been created by people. The fans. The players. The communities. The passion. But as tournaments become larger and more commercialized, many supporters worry that those human elements are being pushed aside. That concern may be unfair. Or it may prove accurate. The truth is that nobody knows exactly what football's future will look like. But one thing is certain. The decision to expand the World Cup has changed the sport forever. Even if the tournament succeeds, football will never fully return to what it was before. And perhaps that is what makes this FIFA decision so controversial. Because it forces fans to confront an uncomfortable reality. Growth always comes with consequences. The question is whether those consequences are worth it. Will the expanded World Cup create new opportunities, new stories, and a stronger global game? Or will it dilute the competition, increase commercialization, and weaken what made the tournament special in the first place? Years from now, historians may look back on this moment as a turning point. The moment football entered a new era. Or the moment it started losing part of its soul. Only time will decide. But until then, one question remains unanswered. Did FIFA make football bigger, or did it make football worse?